So there was this massive cultural mountain that we had to get, pass and influence, and which I think by the time we hit 2017, 18, we were really starting to make some headway. We had really good support from the GMC. We had really good support from the HEE kind of upper echelons, and that was making a big difference. I think as people were starting to come through the schemes, they were starting to make more of a name for themselves. So people were starting to see that actually that these aspiring leaders were actually a really switched on, well-connected group of people that actually, when they're looking, when organizations are starting to look at their own pipeline, talent pipeline, that actually these are the people they should be picking up. We've seen that increase. So that was one area. The other area was around standards itself. So when we came in, standards were a plan, and we know how we wanted to do it, but we hadn't done it yet. So the standards themselves, I didn't have anything to do with standards. They were developed while I was on maternity leave, thank God. So when I came back, my job was about establishing a process of certification to actually start benchmarking individuals and awarding people against the standards. So my job was establishing the certification process, developing the certification committee. So I did that with Sunil, who you will be familiar with, and establishing the awarding process. So we're now 4 years in on that. We have almost 200 fellows across the 3 different levels. In terms of your question around where have you got to go, we've got a massive amount of work to do. 200 fellows is great, but for us, fellowship is the benchmark of effective leadership. So we need to be translating 200 into 2,000 and 200,000 and, global domination. We want almost every doctor to, if they have or are interested in their leadership scope of work, to be engaging with FMLM to actually, like they would any of their other professional exams for their specialty, is to be measured and to be awarded against that.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then off the back of standards, I established a CPD and accreditation program in 2016, I think. And I think this was the start of us really starting to make some ground on an organizational level. So obviously Applied was starting to develop, and the concept of Applied, and you'll remember, so Applied wasn't Applied at the beginning. I think, what was it called? It was called Solutions to begin with, FLM Solutions. And the model was totally different from how it was now. And it was really about, more kind of defined teams that have a problem or diagnosis of an issue, nothing like the immense kind of model that it is now, and I think Applied is amazing and does really important, impactful work. I don't have anything to do with Applied. I take absolutely no credit there at all. That is totally Kirsten and Sophie's baby. But what we did need to do is start taking a bit of a two-pronged approach model to organizations. So we needed to make sure that we already had individuals starting to engage. We know we needed to engage organizations, but we felt that it was really important, if we were going to feed the right leadership messages and make sure that people were able to develop into the leaders that we say they should, i.e. the standards say they should, we needed to make sure that the outside world and those providers, be it organizations, trusts, or external commercial providers, were actually providing individuals with training that actually aligned to the standards and what effective and efficient leadership was. So by establishing CPD and accreditation, we were starting to engage with providers to have them embed the standards within their training models. So we were starting to see individuals coming through for their own leadership competence. Those that were still aspiring, we were able to signpost them to tools and resources outside of FMLM that would contribute to their development against, aligned to the standards. And then we very much saw that model as kind of at the end of that process, they have organisations that are supporting that message, that they are embedding that in, you know, their recruitment plans and their succession planning. We felt like that together was the kind of the strongest approach to really embed medical leadership as a really important core part of somebody's scope of practice.
There's an offer for the individual, which is I can do a course that gets me CPD points that links to the standards, and then perhaps I can apply for fellowship, ultimately, something like that. And then something about, I mean, the organisational work's interesting, as you said, it's the last few years, I think. But just going back to that, you know, how would you recognise what good CPD is? You know, because you don't offer programs. Your predecessor organisation, or the predecessor organisation, BAM, did offer a lot of courses. You are not someone who provides courses, yet you're the ones, and I understand that in some respects, because you're the ones who kind of say these are the standards. But how do you know when a doctor says, look, I've done this, as you get with the fellowship applications, you know, so what? You know, where's the success? How does this demonstrate this?
So it's a really interesting question, and it's a debate that we've had many times over the year is, are we a provider organisation or are we not? And we went back and forth. And I think essentially we decided that we're not a provider organisation for two reasons. One, at that point, we didn't really have the scope to do that. But in recognition that there are already very good existing providers, you know, take the Leadership Academy. They run some excellent programs and we signpost a huge amount to them. Externally, I think people enjoy seeing us as competition. We don't really see ourselves, I mean, we're natural competition, we're in the same game, but, you know, they are providers that do that very well. What we have focused on is niche provision, where nobody else has really filled that gap.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll know that we run a very small number of programs. So we have the clinical fellow portfolio, which we think is absolutely our remit, because we are connecting individuals with organizations that are able to, you know, open the eyes and give opportunities to aspiring leaders that will exponentially increase their leadership learning and exposure. And with that, we're able to support them and develop them, you know, their personal learning, you know, mapped by the standards, etc. So that's always worked really well. And actually it's quite widely recognised that having an external organisation that's running it, so we run it on behalf of NHS England. If NHS England was just, you know, pumping out, you know, trainees or aspiring leaders, that's just their job, that's what they're supposed to do. But actually by working with us, it's more credible because we are really investing in their leadership competence, etc. We're not just pumping out a workforce, you know, for the 10-year plan. And the other programs, things like the College Office Bearers, Tomorrow's Strategic Leaders, they're very niche in terms of very specific individuals, groups, and I think they satisfy a particular purpose. What we don't do is kind of open the floodgates to, you know, just run multiple programs, you know, on communication skills and influencing skills and leadership and management, because I think there are just so many out there that already do it well. So our feeling was, if we can work with those providers to have them embed the standards, that's a win-win for everyone, because we are ensuring that there is good CPD out there that is really actively contributing to leadership learning, leadership development as per the standards, like any specialty would do with the, you know, the specialty curriculum. But people have choice. People can, you know, they have choice of where they can go and who they want to engage with. And if people want to do, you know, we've never said that you have to do a, you know, an MBA or an MA to be this or that and the other. So the fellowship, as in the fellowship of FMLM, recognises a range of CPD. You know, it recognises people that have taken on, you know, taken formal CPD. So it could be that they, you know, they've done award-bearing courses, they've done PhDs, they've done MBAs, whatever, which is great. But equally, we recognise other programs that contribute to their leadership learning, like, you know, any of the programs that the Leadership Academy do, or people that just engage broadly and regularly with CPD, and that doesn't even have to be leadership, but it's about